And there we go, folks. Welcome back to another video. It has been a minute since we last graced your screens. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. We're going to get straight into another episode of our professional skill set series. We started off the last video looking at the benefits of assessing the information through the filter of the role that somebody takes within a particular environment. And we're lucky to have Jim back with us today, now that he isn't off saving the world from the fallout and everything else. But we can't speak too voluminous about that, right?
Oh no, we're just happy to be home and excited. Like everybody else, I've probably been a little bit down and depressed that we haven't had to have a chance to do these meetings or keep up the momentum we were built in with getting it out there. But we are here. We're still it's dedicated as ever to get some information out there. And as they say, right, it's a better late than never.
Absolutely. One could argue that there are more than enough solutions that we need to bring forward, that we believe that people could make active and effective use of. And of course, you guys will be the judge. You know, we're going to talk to you about the things that we are working on, about the modes and models and operandi that you can make collective use of without your roles being too much of a piece of information that you can stumble over. This is going to be focused. This is going to be directed rather. Targeted systems that you can use to filter all of the information that exists in your day-to-day world, because after all, there's lots to see, right?
Oh yeah, well that, and there's a lots to go on. I will say, when there's chaos in the world, that's typically when I'm the busiest, but that's also when you also, as individuals that are out with your families, need to be paying more attention to what's going on too. And I think the timing is perfect. We've been a little delayed, but for at least here in the U.S., it is the holiday season. Today is getting ready to start the season of shopping, where people are going to be out. So, when people out there spending money, there's also people out there looking to take your money and cause harm and issues. So, it's a perfect time to bring in the second installment of our protected skill set series. To further build upon Polar. I think more now than ever is probably better for us to get back to this and get it out there, because these are all skills you can use, skills that you will need. And as Ben was alluding to, yes, although you have not seen us, we've been in the background diligently working on some different programs and courses and trainings that we're looking to be getting out there to you to just make your experiences that much better. So even though we haven't been here, it is still being all for you as we're working diligently at this elves in the background, getting ready to bring gifts to everybody.
That's it. Many things I've been referred to throughout my career. An elf, I think that's a first. I think that's a first. But owing to the kind of specific nature of what we're going to talk about today, and I'm not going to revivify the nature of the acronym just yet. You should have been paying attention from the first round, so that should still be in there at the minute. With the first round from our Polar series, we looked at people and the roles that they take. I over the last couple of weeks, I had the good opportunity to visit a range for the first time. I was in Texas, and I had a good opportunity to go there and kind of pop my cherry, as it were, with the proper handling and the safe use of a firearm. And so afterwards, I was sort of in my adrenaline-fueled joy talking to you about it, and I sent you a picture of my groupings. I believe it's called on the sheet that you fire at,
The
And
target. Yes, sir.
that's the one. Yeah, on the top. That's how inexperienced I am. Right? That's how inexperienced I am with firearms. That was the first time I ever held, fired, loaded, cleaned, cared for any one of them. Anyway, the point that I'm making is through your understanding of the many years of experience that you've got in teaching others and using them yourself and all of this kind of background knowledge with the proper working of them. When I showed you my target, you were talking to me about what was going through my head, how I was doing it, the kind of position I was holding it, and all of these other things that were being broken down through your ability to think critically about the observations that you could make, which were essentially holes in a piece of paper. Right? Let's call a spade a spade. That's what it was. Right? That's what it was. And through that kind of information, you were able to tell me a little bit more about that experience. On the one hand, it's a very Sherlock Holmes level kind of thing to be able to do, but on the other, this is a process that is part of your daily life that works into one of the many roles that you take in terms of the understanding of that kind of information. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you look to break that kind of information down.
Well, it's one is just kind of just taking it in because so many things too is ideally as a firearms instructor, we typically don't even look at the target, right? The target is kind of like, how we use validate, dismiss, and clarify, right? How I've worked on that for however long now.
Long time.
Typically, I'm with the shooter. So ideally, I would have loved to have been at the range with you and observing you. And then from there, course correct and make those little changes that we have. And then what we use is off of what we see and through our experience of what we're observing with the human, we then can utilize the target to then validate, dismiss, or clarify what it is we're seeing. And what happens, so many people will focus on the target. A lot of new instructors and inexperienced will focus on the target and they'll go off certain things and measures they get. And that's what they base it off on. And they'll try to make adjustments and changes without ever paying attention to the person, which is wrong. So it just comes with the tons of everything through there. But if all I have is that piece of paper and the holes in the target, and knowing and understanding based off of the experience, right? The experiential knowledge, the critical thinking aspect, that I can sit there and say, okay, well, off this and my limited understanding of knowing, Ben, that you're a new shooter. Well, then there's first, you start with the catalog is what are some of the key things that a new shooter goes through? What are some of their common mistakes? What are some of the common pitfalls? And then I can go off of that list that I have of what those common issues are. Then I can look at your target, and then based off the target where the holes are placed within there, I can sit there and go, okay, that is going to fall in line with a grip or readjusting the grip. That's going to fall in line with a trigger control or an anticipation or something wobbling within the stance. And that all just comes from there, and then being able to go through it. And then as you notice too, it was like some of my follow-up questions to you were verifying the caliber of firearm that you were firing for the first time. And you were telling me you were firing a 40 caliber, which is pretty good pop for a new shooter, let alone it was in a compact weapon, which is a lot smaller version than a full weapon. So that the recoil aspects, all that's be so much, more involved in that. So that's going to affect with, your grip if you have fairly, medium to large hands, so some of them on all that, and all those things can affect. And then once you go through there, we're able to kind of deduce, through that kind of information of, hey, these are what these are. And then it's the simple follow-ups. Hey, Ben, by chance, were you having to readjust your grip during the different shots?
Was?
Well, yeah, it's like was. Okay. That's the process of the validate, clarify. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's going through my head. And now I'm going to text you the question and allow you to validate that for me. Or, no, not at all, mate. I had a pretty good grip. Okay, well, then I would dismiss it. Okay, then it's not that. Then we'll go to the next. And okay, then by chance were you experiencing this? Oh, okay. And that's all it is just commonly going through, which most people, I'll tell you, is you have we have this experience, right? And we're just using this as an example with firearms, but you have this in your everyday life. We see things, and, like how we get into bed, we see, but based on your mental state, what brainwave
Yeah.
state that you may or may not be in,
Yeah.
you may see things, but you're not observing them. So you need to get yourself in that right headspace to where you are actually observing, because we're always scanning, we're always looking. But until we bring things to the consciousness, to the conscious mind, where it's just a pass by, and we tend to get very complacent and oh, this kind of thing. We're focused on our goal of going to and from work. We're not paying attention to the big middle pieces where bad things happen, those gray areas, that those spaces. But everyone has the ability to do it. Everyone has those things that we do. I tell people all the time, the first time you walked into your new job and had to get to the new office,
Mm.
it takes you some time.
Ah,
It takes us a minute to orient ourselves when we come into the
yeah.
lobby, which hallway we go down, which stairway do we take, which elevator. But the more repetitions we have with that, the more experience we have going into that building, the more autopilot comes in, right? We don't think about it.
Yeah.
We come in, we go through here, we make a right, boom, we're in the office. But if we reverse engineer that, okay, well, how many steps does it take you to get to that stairwell? Is there an alternate stairwell? Have you looked into other things? That's when you really start building this skill that we're talking about. Because the more we do it and the more conscious we are of it, the more details we can pick up on that. Wouldn't you say? And then
Absolutely. So
within that, that's when we find out just how important objects are.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the precise nature of what we're talking about. So we'll use this again as the kind of revivification of the material that we were talking about. Like in that previous example, my role was that of a new shooter. So that's gonna come with it a specific, whether I like it or not, a specific set of ways almost that I'm going to interact with the things around me in that way. So when we looked at this example playing out, and we put you guys in the role of the gas station attendant, the person who was behind the counter taking the money for the fuel and whatnot, there are ways in which that role will dictate that he is about to interact with the environment as a person. So again, building off of that to the O of the matter, we then get towards objects. And there can be specific ways that you would interact with these objects around them by virtue of the role that you would take. My role as a new shooter, which meant very likely I was going to hold the gun in a particular way, and I was going to have to adjust my grip in a particular way, pay special close attention to where the barrel was pointing to when I'm reloading, or I'm assessing what I'm doing, or I'm changing the distance between the target and on the mechanism, whatever that was called, that sends it towards the back of the range or brings it closer. I'm going to interact with that environment by virtue of the information that's connected to that role, and that is going to influence how I operate the objects within that vicinity. Same thing here. The gas station attendant is going to be at risk of accepting that kind of complacency that you just mentioned, in terms of, are all the petrol pumps or the gas pumps, are they all in the positions that they normally are? Right? Which sounds like a nonsensical thing, and who cares where the petrol station pumps are? But they are, they're the gatekeepers of extremely flammable liquid. So you need to make sure that all of these things are kept in check, and by virtue of the routine of being there for however long he's been there in this scenario, that might influence how aware he is of the interactions of the objects therein. Do people always park that close to what I would call the store part of the forecourt? I don't know if it's called a different thing in the States. But that's, do people always park there if they're just nipping in to buy, a couple of groceries or a packet of cigarettes or something like that? Do they always park there? Are the cones always there? Are the sale items outside, like the windscreen wiper fluid and the water that goes in the, are they all there? Or are they all behind shelves that keep all the bottles in place? For all of this information in terms of interacting with objects speaks towards the kind of information. So when we look at this here, the white car is an object. right? It's a very big one, but it's operated in a very particular way. And that woman is indicating through her role on this forecourt, she has no intention of getting gas. No intention. So why else is she there? Why else is she parking? And this kind of information we can ask through examining the person in conjunction with the objects in that proper way. And we can start to break this down critically. You mentioned the nature of validate, dismiss, and clarify. When we get onto, the R aspect, there is a big relevance of our requirement almost to think critically about the information that we see. When we're dealing with human beings, I would be willing to bet that it will never be a circumstance where this unequivocally means this, where A unequivocally means B. There will be an interpretation process that needs to go on in that way. And that approaching the breakdown of this information, be it via the nature of deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, or abductive reasoning, which is nowhere near as nefarious as it sounds, you can arrive at workable information for you to explore the nature of your surroundings with. There is, at least in my experience of the people that use it, there is at times a bit of trepidation with the grey area that exists with the kind of information. People want a comfort zone of this means this, which, I think contributes to the nature of the body language pseudoscience that is rife on YouTube anyway. But that's a separate debate for now. It's about the proper nature of exploring the observations that you see in order to get to the information that matters, relevant to the particulars of the scenario that you're in, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I mean, and you said this one, just look at the time of day. So we look at the time of day, it looks like it's later in the evening. And based off, like you said, off the observation of the object, the white vehicle is nowhere near a fuel pump, And as you're seeing here, this young lady's getting out of the back seat. That's not typical either. So if you're the gas station attendant, it doesn't seem entirely busy there, but we should at least be scanning the area. We probably have cameras and there are monitors. We should see this.
Yeah.
And at some point we should maybe, address something there, because not only are they parked there, but they're keeping other people from being able to use those fuel pumps. So why is that? As you guys kind of saw in the first video, there's a lot of things that go on here. So you kind of see the interactions of the humans. So it was like, okay, well, since we know there's an interaction between them, so do we look at why? Critical think, why would a vehicle park there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a pretty dark parking lot. So if they're making some type of an exchange, then they want to be in a more well-lit area. So is that the best position for them to be in a well-lit area for a safe exchange of goods or items, as opposed to, you see in the background there by the further cone, those looks like parking areas. It's very dark. So are they trying to be seen? Ben, as we talked a little bit too, the red vehicle, in my experience, I would look at it, I think that's actually the attendant's vehicle parked there, because it's a well-lit area close to the door. And if they're closing up at a certain time, they don't want to walk entirely across a dark parking lot, considering they may have nightly deposits that they have to take with them to drop off. On the two cones, the way they're positioned in a different color of the concrete would tell me that's the entryway, and it looks like vehicles probably park in front, but they don't want people that pull up to get something really quick to block the egress, to block the entryway for people to get in and out, because that would be a fire hazard, right?
Yeah.
Or a safety hazard. So just within these couple little things, with these objects, as Ben was saying, with the fuel pumps blocking, where's the emergency shutoffs? Things were to happen. What's part of your routine? Do you go out and do you walk this parking lot if you're not busy inside? Are you in the position, in the role that you have a microphone that you can speak to the outside, which a lot of gas stations have? Can
Yep.
you ask them to move or pull up closer to the pump so that other people can get there? Because we're looking at it, you're impeding the business. So why is it? Something like this should garner our attention, but how often do things like this occur and people just dismiss it and go about their business and pay no mind to it? And some things like this we need to, because that should trigger that internal alarm system that you have. You should see this and it should give you a feeling of that's not right. That's an anomaly. That's not normal behavior
Mm.
for people that pull up to a gas pump. So then we need to go through our processes. As Ben said, we'll get to the reasoning aspects later, but we should have a system of processes that we're going through of whether or not that's something that this is something we need to be concerned about. But it should at the very least garner our attention, and we should at least give it the bandwidth that it deserves to process to ensure our safety, our family safety, those around us, that we can get out of this area without getting involved in any type of altercation of sorts or be part of a particular event that we shouldn't be in.
I agree. I agree. And one of the questions that I hear a lot is usually words to the effect of, yeah, but that's not relevant. Or how do I know if it's relevant? Or there's too much, or all of these kinds of questions that kind of revolve around the attempts to absolve someone of responsibility. And my answer is always the same to it. You aren't fit to decide its relevance until you've explored it, right?
Yeah, I always
You're
tell
not.
people things are relevant until they're not.
Words I like to live by.
Everything is
Exactly.
relevant till it's not, which is why we should be, for me, my simple mind of validate, dismiss, and clarify. It's relevant until it's not, and that's why I have that process of I can validate that hypothesis, that thought
Yeah.
of what this is. If it becomes irrelevant, we simply dismiss it. We no longer waste the bandwidth on it. But if it's something we just need a little bit more context, because the environment maybe is slightly new to us, we haven't really been here or this particular town. We've been to gas stations, so we've got a good idea of what those environments particularly look and feel like. But maybe this is normal for this town.
Ah.
Maybe this is common that they do. Maybe this is where people typically do these kind of things when they exchange stuff. But it might not be common where I live. So that's where we need to clarify. So if we're inside or looking around, that's the role again, right? Because that was the role of me being someone new pulling up.
Yeah.
But if I go inside and the gas station attendant's there, that's just a simple, it seems pretty busy out there. People normally exchange goods at the gas pumps. Oh yeah, that's so and so. They do that all the time. Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Now guess what? Now I can dismiss it, right? And I've been able to clarify. This is what it is. This is normal for them. This is normal at the gas pumps. The gas station attendant knows who they were. Okay, well, that's not a threat. This is normal behavior for here. So now I'm good. I've knocked it out. I go on about my business, make my sale, go on about my way. But now if they're like, well, no, I've never seen that before, or now we draw their attention. Now we brought it to their consciousness, right? And now they're more aware of, hey, that's an anomaly for even me being the attendant. Okay, now we're here in this part of, okay, now we validated that. Now it's still relevant. And now I'm going to be cognizant and pay attention to that until I finish my transaction and I leave the area to ensure I don't wind up in some type of an event, because I've been now alerted to this is an anomaly. This isn't normal. And we can't quite determine if it's going to be a threat or not, or something that we should be concerned, but it's going to remain relevant until one, either they leave the environment and render it safe because they're no longer there or a potential threat, or I safely leave the environment and I'm no longer in that equation. And that's how I kind of work through that critical thinking aspect of it, Ben.
100%. 100%. It's the speed with which a situation can, like I accurately indicated in that video, that whole exchange goes south very quickly. Very quickly. People are getting hit by the vehicles, and there was definitely an antecedent towards it that kicked it all off. And like, the one of the ways that I like to think of it is in terms of describing the value of understanding a role and the interaction with the objects. If you take an arbitrary situation that sounds threatening on the surface, a person walking towards you holding a knife, right? So you put that person in a different context, put them in a kitchen and give them the role of a chef. That's changed completely. You give them a very different kind of knife, and it's almost invisible. It might be particular to some kind of action that they're taking as part of their role, yet you give them a very different kind of bladed weapon that has no place being in a kitchen. It's different again or altogether. So the more that we're taking stock of these little insights, and with the reference towards the nature of inductive reasoning, basically what you're doing with that is you're looking at all of the connected information, and through your explorations of validation, dismissal, and clarification, you're looking at the most likely circumstance to happen to base your conclusions on. And the more we can kind of build this reactionary critique almost towards the information that we see, the more protected and safe our loved ones, ourselves, our colleagues, our co-workers. And this isn't scaremongering in any sense. This is just upping your awareness levels of the interaction with things that could be considered invisible on a day-to-day basis. A pen can be used to write the most glorious stories and wonderful poetry, or it can be quite a serious weapon, in the differing circumstances, and those situations have happened, particular towards, the kind of neighborhood that I live in. People are quite creative with the weaponry that they go for in that particular way. So yeah, guys, this is the next look in building upon the basics of a framework that you can use to filter information that you interact with. It is going to, when it's complete, give you various filtration systems with which to analyze everything that you see that comprises human interaction on a day-to-day basis. Right? It is complete, but by no means is it easy. Right? We are making it easier for you, but when you understand the laws of cognitive load theory and the like, that's quite a weight of information to bear. So the easier we can help you navigate through those masses, the better prepared and the better equipped you're going to be. Right?
100%, Ben. Yes, yeah, like you said, it's we're becoming proactive with our reactions.
Exactly.
It's more or less what I look at it as, right? Because we're going to have a reaction to something. If we see something, an anomaly, it's going to should trigger some sort of reaction or response from us. And not necessarily a physical one, but it should at least, like you said, cognitively get us thinking and processing. And as of right now, you now have the people and the roles, and we now have seen now when we connect that to objects, we now have a little bit more context and environment to go by. We can look at the people. What are they doing? What kind of things are happening with them? What objects are they holding? Objects they are around? As you see, as we give you each one of these links and pieces, it's putting together your own puzzle piece, and eventually you'll see the full picture. And when you put these together with the process we'll give you on how to do this, Ben and I kind of giving you some examples of how we do it. And yes, this is years of experience of us doing these things and putting these things together, but we've come up with this way of getting this information to you is something you do. We're just going to give you the right system in order to process it properly. And in turn, you just keep doing this and doing this and doing this. You're working within your natural instincts, your natural abilities, and you're just going to get better over time. And I find it too, Ben, the more we do this, it just makes it just so much easier. The biggest thing I have to tell people is you just have to break autopilot. There's a time and a place for it, but it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be on autopilot when you leave your house. The minute you leave your home and you're out in public with the family and around, there is not a time and a place to allow yourself to be in autopilot. Same thing when you get to work. Don't allow yourself to get stuck into that mundane of I check my emails at this time. I do this, I do this, I do this, because that's when things can happen. A bad person can come into a workplace, behavior changes can happen in the workplace. And because we're so focused within what we're doing, within our tasks, we miss the obvious. And that's what we're hoping to give you today, is to help you see that the obvious things are really what's relevant.
Absolutely. There is a very wonderful quote by, which way do I turn? This guy. And it's very applicable here, and it's been studied in all of its forms and glory before, and it is simply, the world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance ever observes. And that's really where the minutiae of this lies. So guys, let us know down in the comments what you think the L is going to be in reference to, and we will see you next time. And stay tuned, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It's good to be back, and we'll see you again real soon. Take care.